If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This has been another episode sponsored by Online Horse College. If you haven't had a look at the wide variety of equine-specific accredited courses, then go to onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there. Our guest today is someone with a little bit of a different background. Andrew Bowe is also known as the Barefoot Blacksmith, which is a bit of a contradiction in terms anyway, thinking that a blacksmith usually works with metal and puts metal shoes on horses, but he's a barefoot blacksmith. He started off as a traditional farrier, became a master farrier, and then after about 15 years of shoeing horses and thinking to himself that there's no way you can ride a sound horse without shoes, he had a change of heart. And it's that change of heart that we're going to talk to him about today. How are you today, Andrew?
Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Good.
I haven't been hurt yet today, so that's always a good thing.
All right. Andrew, we start off with a favourite quote normally. Do you have a favourite quote, just something that you might either use as an inspiration or something that you might regularly say to people about their horses, you know, to do with when you're shoeing them or how they could fix their problems?
Oh, well, I don't know if my favourite quote is directly to do with horses and horses' feet, but I've always thought that the human condition is best inspired by last words of famous people, and I always go back to the famous last words of Breaker Morant when he said, "Shoot straight, you bastards."
Yes, all right.
That works on so many levels.
Yes, it does. And I just wonder, you know, it's your favourite quote. How often do you say it to people?
Quite regularly.
Okay. All right, Andrew, starting with horses, you know, and I don't want to just go with starting with horses, but why did you start to become a farrier? You know, was that the job that was offered? Had you already had a horse background, or what made you get into shoeing horses in the first place?
Oh, look, I think I was just in the right place at the right time. I was never going to be a farrier. I just happened to graduate from college in about 1990 when there was a widespread recession and a drought down in our part of the world, and there was no work around. And so, in fact, the only job available was that of an old farrier who was retiring, and he was looking for someone to hand his work over to. And I guess I just fell into it. Right place at the right time. Yeah,
pretty lucky on your part getting into something like that, you know, particularly during a recession.
As it turns out, yes.
Yeah. For someone now who wants to start, whether they become a farrier or start to become a professional hoof carer, if we say that, you know, if they're doing it as a barefoot blacksmith, what sort of core skills or character traits do you think they need to have, you know, just to get started in the first place into that industry?
I think definitely the certain core skills which come with the training on the job, and specific to hoof care and probably applicable to everything in the horse industry, is a sense of safety. Not getting oneself into bad places. So that's all OH&S. But probably the character traits necessary, I think, for anyone who wants to venture into such a rigorous industry is obviously you've got to have be physically capable. But I think more than that even is to have mental toughness. It's a tough job, and day in, day out, to keep facing up to such a tough job. I think you've got to have a reason for doing it.
Mm-hmm. You know, because there's lots of different areas within the horse industry, and it just might be something that someone would like to get into. But as you say, the physical capability is quite hard, quite tough.
Oh yes, even when things are going well and you're not getting hurt by horses, it is actually physically tough. But at the same time, you know, I still think after 30 years, I've hardly ever done a day's work, because I reckon it's just good. It's a good, enjoyable pastime out playing with horses, and if you can put the toughness aside, the job's fine.
Yep. So I was going to say, what's the best thing? Is the best thing just being out with the horses all the time, or the best thing about working in that industry?
Oh, well, the best thing is working with horses, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And it's just a bonus that we get to work outside in all sorts of weather. And we also never really know where we're going to be on Monday. must be a terrible thing to know where you're going to be next Monday at 9 o'clock.
Yes, so plenty of variety working outdoors as well. Yeah.
And obviously, of course, being one's own boss has its benefits.
Yeah. What about the old guy who retired? How long was it? I mean, how long did you spend with him while he showed you the trade?
Oh, now, which one was that?
When you first started?
I had at least three different mentors that I can sort of bring to mind.
Okay.
And one who only just died this year, Hughie Armand, who I worked alongside with for many years, and he was a farrier right up to the end, actually, into his 80s. So I was very lucky. I had at least three mentors I could think of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Who were they? Do you remember their names? You know, it's quite a while ago when you first started.
I'm quite happy to say Bernie Shaw, another old bushie from up in the Highlands, and who was into heavy horses, and the other one would be Wayne Anderson, mm-hmm. who was a master farrier from Mansfield, who actually went on to leave the farrier job and actually did a lot of schooling with a well-known horseman by the name of Buck Brenneman, and he actually brought Buck Brenneman and in his schools to Australia. So,
wow.
So obviously a very progressive thinking farrier. So I was just very lucky. I was lucky to have be mentored by all of them.
Yeah. Did you have much to do with Buck Brenneman when he came to Australia?
Oh no, I was just a little pleb in the background, watching on in awe.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because I've been fairly married to the job ever since, that I've not had the time to go on with much other than horses' feet. So but I've seen the great effect that some of these natural horsemanship teachers have had on horse people across the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but unfortunately, I haven't really had much time to do it myself.
What about handling? You know, because you're saying that across the industry, and I'm just wondering, handling horses 30 years ago and handling horses now, do you think people have got more of an idea of the best way to get the best out of the horses?
Yes and no. I think the level of education is vast improved, and on the whole, I think people have become a lot kinder to horses.
Mm-hmm.
But on the same token, I think the softening up of society has meant that there are people who are probably too soft on horses, and to the detriment of horses actually pushing them around. But on the whole, I think the level of horsemanship has improved out of sight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, it's a totally different world. Like I think across the board, 30 years ago, those of us who are in various industries, it was before the internet, and the flow of information around the world is just lightning fast now. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So ideas just get passed on.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. Okay. Now, I know that you went from shoeing horses, where you thought that you couldn't ride a horse unless it was shod, or you couldn't keep a horse sound without shoes on. And then you went to barefoot. Tell us about that time and what made you change your mind from going from a farrier to a barefoot blacksmith.
I guess it's all to do with chronic lameness and horses that end up either breaking down so that they can no longer perform under saddle, or are no longer sound even in the paddock. When I believe is prematurely, early teens, mid-teens, and I guess it's the frustration. Was the frustration of not being able to help these horses. Horses that suffer such problems as navicular lameness, ring bone, side bone, degenerative coffin joints, arthritis, chronic laminitis, all those sort of degenerative conditions. And from a traditional point of view, back then, really only having metal shoes as an option could not help the horse. And so when I began to hear about the some of the I guess the progressive researchers in the industry, both farriery and veterinary, and mostly overseas, having some success in turning around some of these conditions, but doing it not with shoes, but with getting the shoes off, and either going barefoot or using the newly emerging hoof protection device, if you want to call it that, of hoof boots,
yes.
and getting results. It's pretty hard to ignore it. And so I guess one thing led to another. And what started out just helping out lame horses on the side and still shoeing the mainstream horses gradually became a journey to, well, let's just, instead of putting shoes on everything that moves, let's just say, well, shoes might be needed, but they can be the last resort rather than the first resort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In the racehorse industry, because you're a licensed track farrier, what's the current ruling or what's the current thinking with shoes? I know they have plates to race, but what's the current feeling about no shoes?
Okay, well, I think the racing industry, as big as it is a very specific part of the industry, of the equine industry, and there are rulings that stipulate a horse must be either shod with a race plate for race day,
yes,
or it must have a tip on that covers at least 1/3 of the hoof. And horses are not allowed to actually race barefoot. And I can see that is purely from the point of view of jockey safety, from slippage. And I think that's got to be number one in the racing game is jockey safety. But I think the other thing about the racing industry, it's very, very short term. It's all about short-term gain from a 2-year-old to a 4, 5, maybe 6-year-old. And it's not about what happens to the horse, down the track. So I think on the racetrack, and I still am a racetrack farrier, I do the local races, that's probably how it's going to be, probably how it's always been, probably how it's always going to be as long as racing survives.
Okay.
I think racing's got challenges bigger than that facing it at the moment.
Yes. What about other sports? Do you see much change in other sports? Other competitive horses that are out there doing quite a lot without shoes? I know that there's been quite a lot of dressage horses that take an alternative. Yeah.
It's a very interesting industry, the equine industry, when you immerse yourself in it. And I think it can be pretty much divided up into two camps with very little overlap between the two. And one camp are the people who are competitive first. And barefoot, if horses going barefoot has any negative effect on performance, horses aren't going to go barefoot, they're going to be shod. And that goes even for horses on dressage arenas. And it's still at fairly low levels mostly where the innovation of barefoot has been sort of seized upon. I think it doesn't seem to be until a more competitive person has a horse that suffers a problem where the only option is to get the horse out of shoes and go barefoot. That's the time when they actually will go barefoot. Mm-hmm. And I can't see that changing much in the near future because the other thing about shoes are very convenient for the horse owner.
Yep. Okay.
But having said that, the barefoot side of the industry has grown enormously over the last few years, especially with the onset of really usable hoof boots.
Wait, can you hear anything? No? That's because we're waiting for someone with a good quality horse product to be advertised here. If that's you, then contact us, horsechats@horsechats.com, and we'll send you the details. Thanks. And do you find that then, because I know you've got, you sort of are in touch with the US and that's what got you interested in it. What about other countries? Are other countries traditionally barefoot? Do you see any other changes around the world?
Well, I guess I'm probably stuck in my little corner of Australia and I'm probably not a great participant in things on the internet, so I'm not really sure how things are going in other countries.
Okay.
From what I hear from those who do come to Australia from most places, particularly the States, and discuss such things with us, that Australia actually apparently seems to be leading the way in its uptake of barefoot as a viable option.
Okay. Tell us about the horse that your proudest case study.
That's a hard question to answer that because for one, I don't know if proud's the right word, but there's so many horses that we've been able to sort of keep them alive, and not only that, actually get them back into having a useful life and a sound life. There's been so many over the years that I probably can't even single one out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably not being proud, but it's probably just, I guess it's the great feel-good moments when there's a horse that, one day it's been, it's got, 2 feet in the grave, and then sometime later it's back doing what it wants, what it's meant to do.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you've got lots of proud moments then.
Well, with running the rehab centre at home at Mayfield, we've had probably for the last 15 years now, we've had a constant stream of horses going through. And, obviously we can't save them all, but the vast majority we've been able to save and nearly always bring back into ridden use.
Yep, good. Now, thinking about your thoughts of there's no way you can ride a sound horse without shoes, how big has the challenge been? Because you've changed. You've decided that, we're doing a lot more experiments with barefoot. What about the challenges with other people and convincing other people? Is that challenging or not? Or, tell us a bit about that.
Look, I guess again, I go back to to my thoughts about the industry being divided into 2 camps.
Yep.
Half the time I'm preaching to the choir, and people don't need any convincing. But they know what's best for the horse, and they can find a way to do it with boots and poly shoes and tips and things. The other half, I guess it's not so much about trying to convince anyone, because that doesn't seem to work. It's about leading by example and having a lot of clients leading by example, and probably I guess what's in our favour is as time passes, and that's a really good thing about now. It's been about 15 years that we've been doing this. There's horses 15 or thereabouts 15 years ago that have had soundness issues that were pretty much washed up, and yes, now they're old horses. But 15 years later, they're still in the game and they're sound, and probably that's probably what does the convincing more than anything else.
Yes. Okay, now Andrew, thinking about people that do have their horses barefoot. Okay, so you're saying that, and I think you prefer to have them done, every couple of weeks, just sort of keep them in the same shape rather than a drastic change every 5 or 6 weeks. People looking after their own and doing their own trimming, what do you think is the biggest fault that there is that, that they just need to be made aware of? Just something that they would commonly do that would be to the detriment of horse, that you might even go and do a clinic somewhere, show people how to do some work with their horses and come back 12 months later and say, oh, hang on, we've got to do this a bit different. Is there something common across there that you're seeing again and again?
Yeah. Well, probably the biggest thing, and it probably applies equally to beginners as it does to professionals, is actually the good old-fashioned left-hand, right-hand bias.
Yes.
And people trimming harder with one hand than the other, and not recognising that they're doing that, and then over time the foot becoming distorted because they've been trimming too hard, usually with the right hand. Most people are right-handed. There's not many of us perfect left-handers around. And so that's probably the biggest issue, and it's about pointing that out. And fortunately, if people start looking for it and recognising and owning the fact that they've got a bias, it's usually not a big issue. But by far the greatest proportion of horses I see that are getting trimmed by owner trimmers, it's hard to fault the feet, because the very act of trimming every couple of weeks keeps the feet in optimum framework, and it's just that's the answer to soundness. It's just amazing.
Yep.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, HorseChatscom.
All right, now Andrew, you've got a book, or you've got just the one book yourself?
At this stage, one main textbook, and we've got a smaller book, a smaller general book. The big textbook we wrote a few years ago now about laminitis, and documenting how we actually can actually turn it around for horses with laminitis with Barefoot Rehab.
Yep. What's the name of that book?
The name of the book is the Pony That Didn't Die.
Yep. And what was the other book that you've got?
Oh, it's God, now I can't even think of its name off the top of my head. I think it's just Bare Hoof Care. I think that's what it's called. It's only a small book, about 100 pages.
Yeah. Is there another book that someone else has written that you would also recommend?
Oh, now that's a tricky one. There's that many good books.
What's one that you've learned from?
Well, I've learned from heaps of books. Probably you got me on the spot there because I know this probably sounds a bit strange from a barefoot person's point of view, but the book I probably learnt the most from was a book written by an American farrier called Doug Butler, and that's The Principles of Horseshoeing, because that covers more than just horseshoeing. That covers the whole gamut of horses and having a business as a farrier. Probably a bit outdated now with what I know, but I suppose that's probably a book that initially, for the first 15 years of my life, was a great inspiration.
Okay.
And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books.
Okay, so Andrew, what are you looking forward to now? In the next year, 2 years, what are you looking forward to? What does your future hold?
More of the same.
You must be enjoying doing what you're doing then.
Oh, look, it's a good thing. It's great to get back on the tools, get back playing with horses. Yeah. It's not a bad office. I mean, it'd be really good to have the occasional day off and actually get to ride a horse once in a while. But yeah, look, I don't know. At this stage, more of the same. With it's still the rehabilitation industry is still in its infancy. The barefoot rehabilitation, that is. So there's more horses than there are people who actually rehab them, and I don't see that changing for a little while yet. But when the time comes, it'll be good to be able to step back and just take it a bit easier.
Yeah. Okay, just in a couple of sentences now, can you summarise your philosophy of barefoot?
Look, I guess it's all about aiming for long-term, lifelong soundness for our horses, not just the blue ribbon next weekend. And so I reckon the way I usually say it is that success should be judged according to the calendar and not just to the clock. It really is about the long term and what works for the long term. And sometimes, unfortunately, that there is a bit of mutual exclusion where the fantastic results you can get, now this competition season next weekend, it's not in the horse's best interest in the long term.
Yeah,
but it's also about finding that balance.
Okay, Andrew, how can people contact you?
Probably to email through our website, which is barehoofcare.com, to email the office, and the office can pass on the emails to me and make sure I sit down and reply to them. Not known for my abilities to reply to emails and messages.
Lucky you've got some good staff there in the office too.
Got very good staff. Yes.
Andrew, those details as well, just in case anyone didn't get them, they'll be on horsechats.com/Andrew, BOWE, and otherwise just go to horsechats.com or search for BOWE or Andrew. Okay, Andrew, thanks you for sharing your knowledge today, taking the time to talk to us, and hopefully we'll get you back again sometime soon so you can give us a bit more in-depth knowledge about the bare hoof care. Thank you.
No worries at all. Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Right, see ya. Bye.
Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.